Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. The Ukraine War News Update, first part thereof for the 28th of January 2025. Did you miss me?
Attention, air raid alert. Proceed to the nearest shelter.
This
Don't
is...
be careless. Your overconfidence is your weakness.
That is my phone. Give me an alert.
Attention, air raid alert. Proceed to the nearest shelter. Don't be careless. Your overconfidence is your weakness.
There you go. That is what amazing timing. That is an experience of being in Kyiv at the moment. I'm safe here, fingers crossed. But I can actually faintly hear the sirens from outside now. That was a siren from my phone. There were over 100 drones attacking 14 different regions of Ukraine last night. And so obviously that is something that is continuing. I will, keep you posted on that, I guess. Right, okay. So where was I? I have been very busy and really quite ill off and on, 2 days where I've been completely unable to walk, but I'm all right just now. We're going to go to look at the Ukrainian general staff figures for the last 3 days. Just going to really quickly run through the 2 days and then finish on today. So just got 3 of these. So what did we have 3 days ago? So day number one, 1,720 personnel lost, 9 tanks, 4 troop-carrying airfields, 14 artillery systems, 53 vehicles and fuel tanks. So fairly low in some of these categories, but high personnel losses and tanks pretty much on a daily average. Day number 2, 1,430. So that's a real drop there in personnel. 3 tanks, 12 troop-carrying airfields, 16 artillery systems, 59 vehicles and fuel tanks, and 1 piece of special equipment. So there you have somewhat lower numbers across most of the categories there. 1,430 is still high, but the lower end of the high range that we are used to seeing. And likewise with today's figures. So these are the latest. 1,380 personnel lost, still over the 1,300 threshold. 5 tanks, 12 troop-carrying airfields, 27 artillery systems, 86 vehicles and fuel tanks, and 2 pieces of special equipment. So very high vehicles and fuel tanks losses there. I'm actually going to see if Andrew has got a loss list from recent days. I haven't seen. I've really been out of it, having been so incredibly busy recently. So here we have the 26th. So this is from a couple of days ago. We'll look at this then. 145 personnel loss, so that's over 100. Pretty high numbers there. And we have, that's probably a good 5-to-1 ratio of Russian to Ukrainian losses, although almost all of that ratio comes from the civilian, the trucks and the ATVs, as opposed to the combat assets that they appear to be fairly similar for both sides. So for the Ukrainians, we have a CV-90 damaged. That's the Swedish provided infantry fighting vehicle. Other than that, a number of BMPs. We've got a single T-64 tank destroyed there. A couple of bits of artillery. In the APC category, we have a captured M113. And then we have French VAB abandoned and then hit by a Vandal drone, and then a couple of other bits and pieces. MRAPs, 4 Max Pros, all abandoned or destroyed. So fairly high numbers of irretrievable losses, or high proportion, but actually not too much of a problematic list of equipment. The Russians, as you can see, huge numbers of Bukankas. Look at that. All of those loafs, that's a Bukanka, the Scooby-Doo van, pickup variety as well. And then all of those loafs there. So my goodness, incredible. I would presume that someone's released a montage of footage, or a couple of pieces of montage footage of loaf destruction. It's like burning down a bakery. We have some 4-wheelers and a golf buggy in the ATV section. But in the combat asset losses, BM-21 Grad, the multiple launch rocket system destroyed. We have 3 track garden sheds in the tank and infantry fighting vehicle categories, and then the usual kind of BMPs and BTRs and whatnot. Nothing too significant lost by the Russians there, nor by the Ukrainians, just the sheer mass of vehicles in general that the Russians have lost. Just stupendous destruction of wheeled equipment. Then we're going to do the same for the distance munition sort of strikes. So day one, we had one of so Russia had success with drones again during the night. Indeed, their best percentage hit rate for a long time. 1 in 6 of the kamikaze drones got through the defenses. Of the 72 fired, 50 were destroyed, and only 9 were decoys, while 1 was still flying at the point of Tim White writing this. So that would give you 60. That's 72. 60 out of 72 intercepted. That's 12 out of 72 getting through. That is indeed very high in terms of Russian success there. Very high rate compared to what we normally see, which is near enough 100% very often. But there's been a few days in this last week where that's definitely not been the case. Day number 2, a little late getting the air defense news out, said Tim White on that day yesterday. Russia managed to get nearly 8% of its drones through Ukrainian defenses. Of the 104 attack drones sent overnight, 57 were shot down, 39 were stopped or fell harmlessly, and that left 8 to hit Ukrainian territory. So 8 out of 104. Again, fairly high, all things considered. And if you're thinking, that's one day after another. So, 12 on that day, 8 on that day. That's 20 drones in 2 days hitting, one would presume, that their intended targets. And then we'll come to today's. In fact, let's do today's one now. So 100 drones were launched. Ukraine downed 65 of them. 28 were lost in airspace. 2 flew toward Russia and Belarus. So that's 95, leaving 5 to, one would presume, hit their target. So that is a 5% success rate. So 5 getting through there. It's not too bad, but certainly over the last week, the Russians got more drones through. Depends where they're firing them. Now, just to go back a couple of days, because I haven't spoken to you for that time, we heard that the Ryazan oil refinery was hit, and it had some pretty explosive footage to support that. It was hit for a second time, and they've closed the oil refinery down now. So Russia's Ryazan oil refinery halts operations after drone strikes, sources say. That is very important considering, as Euromonitor Press says, the recent strikes disabled key processing transport equipment, stopping production of a plant representing 5% of Russia's refining capacity. So that one plant is pretty important and will affect Russia, the Russian hydrocarbons industry infrastructure quite significantly, potentially. But the strikes last night, anyway, into Ukraine, dealt some blows, particularly to Odessa. Max 24 says at night Russia attacked with more than 100 strike drones. Consequences of the enemy attack are being worked out in 7 of the 14 regions affected. So 7 regions appear to have more damage than others. Indeed, we hear that Odessa particularly was targeted. The aftermath of a Russian drone attack on Odessa this morning, says Anton Gerashenko. 4 people were injured. Residential buildings were damaged. About 10 vehicles burned down. Russia continues attacking Ukrainian civilians. And indeed, Kyiv region drone debris damaged a famous retro car museum. 9 vehicles were destroyed, 27 damaged, and fires covered 600 square meters. So that's sad news there for those old cars in the museum. In Odessa, 10 cars burned down, windows shattered in 3 buildings, 2 were injured, a grain warehouse and houses were hit. And you can see the images of some of the destruction there, which is a shame there. So, okay, going on to other bits and pieces now. So It's going to be a fairly quick video today. North Korean troops seem to temporarily withdraw from one section of the front in Kursk Oblast. The military says Russia claims to have captured Velika Novoselka as well. So that's just a few things going on. It's interesting that they have pulled back because they've been so mauled, apparently, the North Koreans. I was speaking to a journalist last night, JP Lindsley. I think it was him I was speaking to about this. About how Kursk, and actually, no, not just him. No, there was someone before that. Anyway, this idea that the North Koreans, is Kevin Leach, a NATO trainer, Canadian Armed Forces. He was saying exactly, or we were saying exactly the same thing, which is that people underestimate the North Koreans. I was like, thank you for saying this. Thank you, because I've been saying this for ages. He gets really frustrated that people dismiss the North Korean soldiers as just being, they're rubbish soldiers. And it's like those soldiers, 12,000 of them, will lead to the attrition of Ukrainian materiel and personnel. And the Russians were on their knees. They got the North Koreans. They're now on their feet again. The North Koreans have allowed. That's why I keep saying they're something of a game changer, the North Koreans. And it's really interesting to speak to someone else here, training troops that believes exactly the same thing. Because imposter syndrome and all that, you wonder whether you know what you're talking about. Because I've got no formal expertise in this area, but it seems patently obvious to me that the North Koreans have allowed Russia to continue this war at something of the level they were at previously. They've just got them out of a real hole, I think, and that the North Koreans have pulled back to reconstitute is a sign that Ukrainians have done a really good job in attriting the North Koreans, but that will have come at a cost, and that's a cost that wouldn't have been incurred had the North Koreans not come to fight. Right, what else do we have? Another cable, this time near Latvia, has been damaged. Authorities in Sweden have confirmed a ship has been arrested, I guess, in connection with the possible sabotage of the data cable from Latvia. The Ryazan carries the flag of Malta, so this is the ship that has been impounded, I guess, but left a port in Russia just 2 days ago. Wonder if there's any more detail coming out on that. US President Donald Trump's decision to freeze foreign development assistance for 90 days has thrown Ukrainian organizations into turmoil, in some cases threatening their very existence and leaving the people they support in limbo. This is quite a serious issue. There was as it was reported, the Trump administration was freezing foreign funding, and unfortunately, that has had a real effect. So, although there was a lot of worry that this would be a freezing for 90 days, I guess at least freezing of US military assistance, it was quickly clarified that this wouldn't include military assistance to Ukraine. But my goodness, US aid provides so much funding for Ukraine in this case across the board: the energy, infrastructure, housing, redevelopment, all sorts, rebuilding of all elements of Ukrainian society and support for so many NGOs and humanitarian projects, etc., etc. This is huge, and there's a lot of consternation with what's going on there. In fact, I know this is not the video for this, but I just look at what's going on and look at bullying. And at the end of the day, a bully may extort from the playground, $50 worth of lunch money off different people. So at the end of the day, bully looks at his money and says, well, I've done all right, thank you very much. Like, the American population are going to be possibly looking at the outcome to what's going on around the world with US foreign policy at the moment, and there might be some Americans going, well, yeah, we've done all right. We've we're looking like we could get hold of Greenland. We've got Colombia to capitulate to us. We've got Panama. We've got everyone's cacking themselves over the great America first. But you've got tariffs on, so it's going to put 25 to 100% tariffs on Taiwan. There's no attempt to do anything about China. In fact, unbanning TikTok. The China hawks in the Trump administration appear to have evaporated, and Trump is just consistently going after all of his allies. So, who are our mates? Yeah, let's go and extort some money off them. Denmark, yeah. Mexico, yeah. Canada, yeah. Colombia, yeah, we'll have some of that. Taiwan, those guys that are just getting screwed over by China. Yeah, let's screw Taiwan over. Not China, let's screw Taiwan over. Okay, brilliant. So, yeah, you might get some Americans going, well, the short-term gain, this is great. But the long-term reality here is that we've been moaning about advocating, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. If we do nothing about that, is advocating for bullying behavior. And it's allowing people to go around the world bullying their way into getting extra territory. And we've found that disgusting. Last 3 years, we've been absolutely excoriating Russia for doing that. And yet America appears to be going, yeah, all right, we'll have some of that. We'll do that. So the long-term effect of America's foreign policy approach will be that, yeah, bullies are cool, and big strong people can just go around extorting stuff out of weaker ones. This is the bully on the playground, and what will happen is America will lose any kind of goodwill from allies, and we'll start hanging out together ourselves and eschewing any kind of American support. Europe will go on its own, and America will just isolate itself, not from retreating from the world, but from going around the world trying to hit all its mates. And all its enemies are kind of, hey, you're cool. It's just insanity at the moment. It's just... Satellite images confirm the evacuation of Russian military equipment from Syria. Sparta and Sparta 2 vessels have entered Tartus now. Sparta 2 has already left the port, and a large part of the containers and equipment seems to have left on it, and the Sparta is still being loaded. So that's a shame. It looks like the Russians have got their way in terms of being able to exfiltrate equipment and possibly personnel from Tartus in Syria. Well, that's enough from me. I've got so much to talk to you about in terms of what's going on here in Ukraine, who I've spoken to, but also just what's going on in the world geopolitically. I'm in Ukraine at the moment at a time when the world is going nuts. I would normally be banging on for hour upon hour about all the geopolitical ramifications of events, particularly in the US, but also stuff going on in Eastern Europe. You've got protests in Serbia, in Slovakia, in Hungary. There are some good signs from some areas, and then interesting stuff in the US. You can build a case for there being a potential decent path for Ukraine through some Trumpian activities. It'll be all for the wrong reasons, but you might end up doing the right thing, or at least somewhat of the right thing. And as I said to you before, you get a lot of people going, yeah, I told you Trump would be the one for Ukraine, and Trump always had Ukraine. No, Trump has his own interests at heart here. And if Ukraine fits into that, and if transactionally, if he can, extract value from supporting Ukraine in more of a sort of personal or kind of economic sense for the US, such as, we'll have all those frozen Russian assets as long as they're spent on US weapons and stuff. So it's not helping Ukraine because it's the right thing to do or moral thing to do, and not particularly thinking about long-term strategic interests, but actually just short-term transactional goals or transactional benefits to Trump himself or the US kind of bank balance. Then that appears to be what could drive Trump to do the right thing for Ukraine in terms of sanctioning Russia, continuing to help the the Ukrainian army, but we'll see. There's so many. I mean, people just don't know what's going to happen. But you might have a good result for Ukraine, or indeed you might not. I mean, goodness me, you look at Taiwan, you're thinking, yeah, you really want the US to be supporting Taiwan at the moment. China are just licking their lips, and instead the US go hard on Taiwan. I don't know. Anyway, take care, guys. Speak to you soon.